Here we go again.
Did you watch it?
I did not.
Pretty terrible.
That was so terrible, I think you gave me cancer.
I just got back from seeing the Melania movie, and it is awful. The phrase "I just got back from the Melania movie" is something I never thought I would be uttering in my life, but here we are. Bad choices were made. It's genuinely really bad, guys. I don't really know how else to describe it other than maybe...
Well, that was fucking dreadful.
I was trying to think of an analogy on the way home that works, and the only one that really makes sense to me is like if somebody, for some reason, ate feces and then tried to describe it to you in very strong words what it was like. You get the idea that it was a bad time or it tasted awful, but you obviously could not even begin to come close to the horror of experiencing it first person. That's what this movie was like. It was awful. The only way it was really bearable was I sort of wrote a running commentary of just everything wrong with it, and there's so much as it was happening. So I feel like I'm going to bring you inside my horrible, broken world and sort of, I'm going to explain to you how bad the movie is. Because obviously, you know, some of us have seen the reviews. I made a video about the reviews, and they're obviously, none of them are great. They fail to capture how terrible it is because it's a sum of its terribleness. It's just, a whole package is just so awful. And I think the best way I can sort of invite you into this experience, if you are also a masochist, is to use my notes to sort of take you through the movie step-ish by step. Don't worry, it won't be as long as the movie. It'll feel that way, I'm sure, but it won't be as long. But basically, here is the experience of watching the movie, and may God help us all. Currently 3 minutes away from the cinema. Already have a small hit of dread in my stomach. Just a small local chain. Actually a bit of a long line for parking, which is concerning because I'm worried if I miss the start of the movie. I might not be able to follow the plot. So... Okay, so at this point, you know, I've parked up, I walk into the cinema, I go to show my ticket, and I realise, oops, silly me, I bought a ticket to a different movie that's airing at the same time. What a dunderhead I am. I think it's a brain fart because I think the title of the movie spoke to me like what I was thinking at the time I booked it. Silly mistake, but I thought, you know, might as well make the worst out of a good situation and then go and just see Melania anyway. Okay, so now we're in the cinema. You know, lights are down, obviously. I've already got my phone out. Because I'm not a Trump voter, I actually went out of my way to like sit somewhere I wouldn't distract anyone. I put my brightness all the way down. I even went into the accessibility settings and made it even low brightness. I put invert on so it was black. You know, the background was black. I'm pretty sure I don't think I annoyed anyone else. Because again, I'm not a Trump voter, so I do actually care about people around me. So even though the people watching that were possibly terrible people, I still tried to make sure they enjoyed their awful propaganda film as much as they could. Anyway. It's an AMC cinema. Nicole Kidman comes on. Heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Not today, Nicole. Not today. The movie opens with tone-deaf, you know, sort of Vietnam War sort of music. They take their time to show us all of the wealth, you know, the Mar-a-Lago Palace, these fancy cars, the gold, the jewelry. It opens with obscene displays of wealth. I mean, whatever happened to presidents being man of the people? Who needs that, right? Next, dear old Melania is getting from Mar-a-Lago to a Trump plane at some airport somewhere. And I'm just there thinking, my God, Trump's planes are as old as he is. They show us the cockpit of the plane. There is a very, very weird and disturbing Trump bobblehead, and no, I'm not kidding, in the cockpit holding a gun or something. After rubbing all this obscene inequality-style wealth in your face for minutes, so many minutes, finally Melania said something, finally, if you wanted her to speak. The first thing she says is,
Everyone wants to know. So here it is.
Citation needed, Melania, citation needed. And then we go into a Michael Jackson song for no reason, which is pretty on brand for the Trumps, you know, being big friends of the Epstein types as they are. And somewhere during this incredibly boring long intro, you get a produced by Melania Trump plastered on the screen. I love it says that considering she hasn't produced anything of value in her life. It's incredibly on brand. She's now talking to the audience. I'm not consenting for this to happen, but it is happening anyway. She pronounces film as film. Like, that's something that is continuously crazy to me throughout the whole movie, is how much of an in-your-face immigrant she is, considering her husband's entire base. Like, make it make sense. The first scene, if you can call it that, is Melania Trump trying on clothes. It feels like B-roll from a reality show. The sound on the speech is out of sync. This sets you up for the quality of the rest of the movie quite nicely. Melania is still talking about clothes and she says, "My experience in architecture provides me with design experience. Why the fuck does this feel like a resume? Who the fuck is this for?" At this point, I'm wondering if people come to see this movie to try and sort of live her glitzy life vicariously. Ironically, a life they'll never get to experience because of people like Melania. A repeating theme of this movie is they try and humanize her by surrounding her with humans, like people with actual personalities or stuff to say, but it just makes her seem like even more of a robot. Early on, a woman who works at the White House tells us the story of how she immigrated here, her family did, as a very young child, come to America for freedom and opportunity and equality. The irony is seemingly completely lost on the audience. An audience, by the way, of about 12 people, I think, being generous, maybe less, on opening weekend in the smallest screen in this massive cinema. just no one there, essentially. At an early point, Trump calls her.
Hi, Mr. President.
Congratulations.
Did you watch it?
I did not.
He talks over her a lot to brag about the election. The people in the audience find this hilarious, like he's some kooky uncle. Do these morons realize this guy is running the country? The next thing that happens is Jimmy Carter dies. I wish I was kidding. Her life is so empty and boring, they needed somebody else to die to provide it with content. I wonder how much they paid him for that. So she hops back in one of Trump's ancient planes and Trump greets her when he gets off. He kisses her like she's a FedEx package. At this point, a robotic Melania voice tries to tell us that grief comes in waves. Wave 1.0, wave 2.0, wave 3.5. We now get an interview with Melania's old man. He barely speaks a word of English, despite living here and being a citizen. Again, the irony is seemingly lost on the audience. I guess it's okay for him because he's white. Melania has to translate for him, which kind of reminds me of that scene in Hot Fuzz when they have to translate from gibberish farmer to regular English.
Mr. Webley, I trust you have a license for that firearm.
I don't for this.
Does for this one.
He does for this one.
Except in this movie, we just get half a translation. Melania then relates Jimmy Carter dying to her mother dying. She says she thinks her mother will be with her when she lights a candle for her. Yes, Melania, she will. She's with all of us, because we're all in hell, and this movie is proof. Melania then tells us that mourning your mother never leaves, that the grief lives alongside you, as if nobody else has ever experienced grief before. Or to be more accurate, she probably had to have somebody describe grief to her so she could try and relate to us. At this point, I unwisely check my watch. Dear God, it has only been half an hour. How and why did they film nearly 2 hours of this drivel? Who else had to die to pad this movie out? Melania then tells us all about how her mother's strengths and values live in her and how she tries the hardest to live by them. I wonder at what age her mother first told her, "I don't really care, do you?" The real strength of cinema is that it has the power to both normalize things and glamorize things. But this stuff shouldn't be normalized and it definitely shouldn't be glamorized. I think at this point I'm understanding why this movie was described by that one guy as evil.
The film is, I feel actually like kind of shell shock. I thought it would be bad, but it's not. I think it might be evil.
Now there's an extended scene where we watch Melania have a Zoom call with Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France. I wish I was kidding, as if Zoom calls weren't bad enough to experience in first person. Brigitte Macron is essentially the French Melania. Except not quite. Melania asks her how she's combated school bullying. She's pushing her whole be best thing, which is something she totally embodies and lives every day. Brigitte Macron delivers her a fairly thoughtful long list of stuff they did to combat bullying. Stuff like no phones in school, limiting access to social media for people of a certain age, social studies and all, this kind of thing. We cut to Melania, who's writing simply no phones on a piece of gilded Trump toilet paper. And now the movie moves on to the next piece of content, simply because it must. We hear a radio broadcast about the fires in California. You can feel the movie shrug. No footage is shown. That segment lasts about 2 seconds. Melania's hat segment, about an hour. This segment, 2 seconds. We move on to an October the 7th survivor. Because the only way this movie can find even a slightly interesting way of showing Melania is through the lens of other people's tragedy. This woman passionately describes the heart-wrenching pain of leaving her husband behind when she was freed from captivity and he wasn't. Melania's expression does not change at all. She is completely expressionless, completely robotic. She would kill at a game of poker right in this second. It's like this woman is reading a grocery list. Melania quickly says, "My husband will be back in power soon. He'll make it a priority." All roads lead back to Trump. Melania then says to her, "I'll always use my influence and power to fight for those in need." Once again, the irony is seemingly lost on the audience. This poor woman breaks down crying in Melania's arms. Melania's expression remains expressionless. As this poor woman's crying, she's basically saying to Melania, "I feel like my husband was there for me and now I'm not there for him." Melania says, "You are." Bleep bloop, affirmation.exe, run, comforting, .bat. We cut right back to Melania trying on clothes. This movie feels absolutely unbearable at this point. It's like some weird behind the scenes of an episode of Drag Race, except there's no queens, just a boring robot with zero personality. They're now in a car. Somebody behind the camera asks her what her favorite recording artist is, because she's too rich to say who's your favorite musician or artist, I suppose. Melania says Michael Jackson. Which one? Melania says Billie Jean or Thriller. Bleep bloop, opinions.exe. The man behind the camera is singing along to Billie Jean now. Is this Brett Ratner? How much fucking cocaine is this guy on? Melania tells us how she carries the idea of home with her, as she's often moving between New York, DC, and Mar-a-Lago. At this point, I'm wondering if the audience relates to her struggle to define home while she's living between several mansions. Then she tells us how she started to take her career in modeling seriously as a teenager. I'm assuming at this point they'll brush over most of her modeling career. And they do. Moving on, Trump is finally here. Hooray! He tells the cameras that Melania represents the country so beautifully. Unfortunately, I think he might be right. At this point, I unwisely check the clock again. Only 15 minutes has passed since the last time I checked. This feels like it breaks the laws of the universe. I am having serious regrets. They're now discussing the inauguration with Trump and some robots in suits. Trump is pouting like a child. He's being told he'll ride with or meet with Biden. That'll be an awkward ride, he pouts. I wonder whose fault that is. Trump then complains that they're holding a football match on the same day as his inauguration. He says they probably did it deliberately to spite him. He's not kidding. The audience behind me finds this burst of narcissism funny. Melania's English completely unravels when she's not reading from a script. Like, all of the interactions she has that are real are painful. She's asking about security for Inauguration Day. They will be frisk? She says. Once again, the irony is seemingly lost on the audience. We're now treated to an instrumental version of the song Everybody Wants to Rule the World. The irony is seemingly lost on the audience. These people tell them who they are to their face, and the audience laughs and pretends they're something else. We now cut to them visiting the graves of 3 soldiers who died in 2021. Melania is marching with a man who claimed bone spurs to avoid the draft, while she reads from a generic script about how the graves represent the soul of America. The irony is seemingly lost on the audience. Trump and Vance stand in the line at this ceremony. Vance is so clearly doing his best, "I'm sad" face. He's like, These people are all fucking robotic ghouls. We're ruled by sociopaths. Humanity is inherently broken. At this point, I'm thinking a lot about Douglas Adams' excellent rant about anyone who wants to be in power absolutely should not be ever. Once again, it strikes me, this movie is once again leaning on death for content. A tacky, gaudy, gilded dress of a film with a ribbon of death running throughout it. Thematically, it fits the Trumps perfectly. Melania then tells us that dead soldiers remind her that freedom isn't free. My eyes almost detach from rolling so fucking hard. Freedom definitely isn't free. If you want to avoid serving, you have to be rich. Now bear in mind what's happened so far. I've described it to you in painful detail. I'm sorry. Keep that in mind. I'm now thinking about the positive reviews I read online, totally not bot reviews, saying what an amazing movie it is and how it's an amazing insight and how incredible it is she put the inauguration party together so quickly. She has done nothing of the sort. Even the shills didn't watch the movie. I'm more of a sucker than a shill. We're now at some pre-inauguration party. There is an Elon Musk jump scare. I am very angry about this. Trump never looks happy during this scene. Neither of them look happy. They are both Trump. The whole night can be about them, and they still are not happy. There is a Joe Rogan jump scare. I am now very angry. We cut to Melania dressing for the inauguration. A piece of music that I think might be Melania's waltz is playing in the background. It sounds a lot like the Imperial Death March. The irony is seemingly lost on the audience. There is now a 2-minute scene of her putting on a hat. I'm thinking about the life choices that brought me here. Father, forgive me, for I have sinned. We see a large group shot of the employees at the Blair House where the Trumps are staying. Most of them are from communities that ICE is now racially profiling. The irony is seemingly lost on the audience. Melania slips dutifully into the background the second Trump appears in any scene. No wonder they waited half an hour to introduce their main character. It's a bit like Romeo and Juliet, except without the happy ending. The Trumps are now getting out of a car. Biden's on some steps. Trump is walking towards him. Biden is smiling at Trump as he walks toward him. Normalizing this maniac after he tried to overthrow an election is pretty much how we ended up in this mess. At this point, it occurs to me that only the Trumps could manage to make the inauguration of an American president boring. We're now watching Melania watching the inauguration on TV. This is a step below reaction content at this point. This is rock bottom. Time stretches infinitely in front of me. Melania then says this batshit crazy line. She says, "Walking into the Capitol's rotunda, I feel the weight of history intertwined with my own immigrant story," she tells us. Or She reads from a script. She tells us how we must protect our own individual rights, how we're all bound by the same humanity. The irony is now so loud it is reverberating around the room, tipping over popcorn buckets and spitting in people's eyes. Yet somehow, amongst the audience, it seemingly goes unnoticed. At the inauguration, Biden and Kamala walk out. You can feel the shivers in the audience behind me. Trump walks out alone. I wonder where his VP is. Why wouldn't his VP be there? Trump is sworn in. He kisses Melania twice inside her ear for some reason. Hillary and Kamala look on angrily, like it's a high school dance. These people live in a different world from us. Trump is now telling us that the golden age of America starts now.
The golden age of America begins right now.
From now on, America will flourish and be respected all over the world, he says.
From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world.
It is opposite day, clearly, as since then he has achieved the exact opposite. Trump tells his speechwriter in a weird flashback that he wants to be referred to as a peacemaker in his speech. Someone in the background says, not warmonger? Trump says he doesn't like the word mong. I'm looking around thinking this cannot be real life. Then we cut to Melania telling us that nobody has endured more than Donald Trump in the past few years. As another reviewer astutely pointed out, the woman who was kidnapped on October the 7th she reeled out as a prop has already been put back on the shelf. Now the helicopter carrying the old president takes off into the sky. This would have been a good place to end the movie. Not good, but compassionate. Kind, considerate to the audience's feelings and needs. But this is a Trump project. The audience be damned. It plows rudely on into inauguration lunch. It hasn't finished boring the fuck out of us yet. And we now get lots of tortuous shots of Trump walking slowly and decrepitly set to bombastic, loud James Bond music. Once again, the irony is seemingly lost on the audience. The pretenses of this being a Melania movie are all gone. She's now the narrator role. Trump is on screen. They're celebrating the inauguration at the Capital One Arena. It feeling like a sporting event is very apt. The irony is seemingly lost on the audience. The song This Is a Man's World starts playing. The irony is seemingly lost on everyone involved in making this movie. Now they go to the White House. The camera pauses spookily on a painting of Barack Obama, almost like a foreshadowing of it being angrily torn down. Melania tells us we have 3 more balls to attend with her tonight. I want to die. We're now forced to watch the Trump slow dance. It's the most unnatural mating display I've ever seen. These automatons do not mesh or synchronize together at all. The irony is seemingly lost on the audience. Elvis Presley's Glory, Glory, Hallelujah plays. Elvis Presley met his wife when she was 14 and he was 24. The irony is seemingly lost on the audience. At this inauguration ball or whatever, the YMCA is playing. Melania is showing a tiny bit of humanity. She's trying to dance along to it. Trump gets annoyed and hurries her along, ending her only smile in the movie. We cut to Trump and his family smiling for the photographers. His smile has 2 settings: on and off. His smiles do not fade. They do not naturally go away. Either he is displaying smile.exe or he is not. Melania complains about having been awake for 22 hours, apparently oblivious to what she's just put her audience through. It is 2 a.m. in the White House. It is 6 a.m. in my soul. Trump tells the cameras she is the most amazing first lady ever. She has to be best. Be best. The narcissist's war cry. Trump kindly adds that she is difficult to live with, because even half a compliment from a narcissist comes with an asterisk. Melania now tells us that children will always remain her priority as First Lady. I assume she means rounding them up into camps. She tells the audience about how she'll serve America, and she ends it, very importantly, with, and of course, I'll serve with style, because fascism needs to wear a silly hat. We cut, and we're suddenly watching a photo shoot. A film of a photo shoot. This isn't even B-roll, it's Z-roll. It is awful content. Melania smirks at the cameras. We have to watch her smirk at the cameras from the side. Is this really the outro? And suddenly, oh my goodness, it really is. The movie just ends right there. There's an awkward silence, and then behind me, somebody moves the recliner button down. It's a squeaky old one. It makes a long, slow fart sound. It is apt. Some of the people in the audience behind me clap half-heartedly. I have nothing in common with these people. We live in different universes. I find myself walking defeatedly to the exit. Some of the people in the audience are actually staying through the credits. Maybe they're going to tease Melania's appearance in Avengers Doomsday, but I myself need to get the fuck out of there. That was really bad. A lot of the people walking out of the cinema afterwards had plastic surgery. Make of that what you will. It's pretty terrible. I need to go home. That was terrible. Genuinely terrible. I genuinely tried to go with an open mind. I know it might not seem like that, because obviously, I mean, it's about Melania Trump, and I'm not a big fan. But it was just like it was awful. It committed the biggest cardinal sin of cinema, which is it was fucking boring. It was so fucking boring. If I hadn't have been writing down some notes about it as I was watching it, it would have been unbearable. The only way I made it bearable was by kind of just riffing on it, or like just I don't understand humans, man. I can't relate to the people in there. The people in there who watched the whole thing and then clapped an hour and 50 minutes of I'm gonna drive home and then I'll do the review. I kind of just wrote down stream of consciousness, so I'll just do that for you. You know, hopefully it makes sense in that format. Because I think this movie's so bad that you can't really convey to people how bad it is unless you tell them what happens in it. Because nothing happens. Like it's an hour and 50 minutes and nothing happens. There's nothing interesting. It's unbelievable. Like nothing happens. It's the inauguration day. It should be it shouldn't be hard to make that interesting, even with boring people. But it's just so boring. People sat through that. Not very many people, obviously. There was only about 10 people in there, but 9 other people sat through that, and then some of them clapped at the end. I don't know. I guess sunk cost fallacy. I guess if seeing American citizens rounded up and dragged into cars wasn't the breaking point for you, then a very boring movie wasn't gonna magically be the breaking point. Anyway, I'm gonna go home and then I'll do my actual review. But yeah, it was fucking awful. So yeah, that was my stream of conscience review. That's literally very, very accurate to what happened, how I experienced it, how I've saved you from experiencing it. I can't really overstate how terrible it is because it's got no excuse to be. It could have been half an hour. It didn't need to exist, obviously. It's a vanity project / massive bribe. But the fact that it's 2 hours and it's about a historic event and nothing happens is shameful. It's boring. It's poorly filmed. It's weird. It's not even good propaganda because nobody watching that is going to have their mind changed. If you like the Trumps, you'll tell yourself that it was a good thing you sat down for 2 hours and watched Melania putting on different hats and getting into cars and stuff. If you don't like the Trumps, you weren't there to watch it. Unless you're me and you hate yourself. It's just a bad movie. It fails on all levels. I mean, I think arguably you could say one of the actual points of it was to try and humanize a psychopath, but it fails entirely to humanize her. It doubles down on being like, yep, this chick is a crazy robot. Somebody out there, presumably some talented genius, could have made an interesting movie about Trump's inauguration day. It could have maybe made Melania look a little bit human, but it wasn't Brett Ratner. This movie isn't just an assault on the senses, it's an assault on decency and common sense. It's crazy. It's like a canary in a mine. Truly, you know, we live in hell when this movie exists. Truly, you know, democracy is choking out its last when a billionaire can hand over $75 million like it's nothing to the First Lady as an open bribe whilst people starve on the streets. I think the one redeeming quality about this movie is that at some point in the future it will serve as a document, not necessarily a really accurate, unbiased one, but a document nonetheless of how and why America collapsed. So yeah, my rating, 0 out of 5, 0 out of 100, 5 turds up. It's just awful. It's a terrible and boring documentary about the terrible and boring day of a terrible and boring person. I very much do regret going. I very much doubt this review is entertaining enough to justify it. So please, if you made it this far, honor my sacrifice, like and subscribe. I'll see you again for a piece of content that isn't this, please God. I'm British Chris, and this is Raw America. While I'm still waiting in line for parking, I thought I would add that I'm not really a proper adult. I don't know if you can tell from looking at me. This is actually the second movie I've ever seen by myself in the cinema in my life. The first one was last week, and it was Lord of the Rings 2 Towers Extended Edition. And I'm genuinely concerned that this movie will feel much longer than that one.